one of the toughest things that I had to do with the production of Stray Kids, shooting Stray Kids, was I have found somebody in town who lived in North Tulsa. Now, North Tulsa is not necessarily the safest or most pleasant neighborhoods to live in. There's crime, there's robbery, there's all sorts of things you got to be careful about. And so I had met this guy. He had bought a black Magic Cinema camera, and he also had prime lenses because he was also interested in making a movie, but he didn't really have a story. He didn't have anything. He had the equipment. I had the story. I had the vision, and so I was able to, for $2,000, was able to rent his equipment, and to shoot half of the movie because the other half was shot the year prior with Bob Dodd in his Red Scarlet camera, and it was done. That was done on purpose, mainly because there was no budget, and it was just easier to shoot, one whole summer one way, and then there's two stories that collide, and so I wanted to have. It was okay for me to artistically. It was like a choice I made. I wanted to shoot in two different cameras. I wanted somebody to have one way of shooting with one half of the story, and then I wanted to have my way in two little bit of different artistic visions brought together to create something unique. And so having to deal with Brian because he was so paranoid about getting robbed was that I had to show up at his house around 5 a.m. or earlier than that. I had to drive in his garage. It was a one-car garage with barely any room. And so the idea was that nobody saw the equipment we were loading in and loading out. And so I would load in the car and then back out of the garage and then leave for the shoot. And then come back the same night after shooting a long day of shoot, go in the one car garage. He would close it, and we would unload everything, and then he would open the car garage, and I would leave, and then I would repeat the same process, And it was an additional thing that made it harder. But at the end of the day, I understood where he came from, and when you make deals with certain people, you have to be able to work with them, and say, okay, these are your needs and demands. Okay, I can make that work. And so I figured out a way to make it work with Brian. He was, the gear was, I was properly taken care of. Nothing ever happened to it. He was happy at the end of the day because he made money, which meant he could fund his movie, if he wanted to make his. But that was, I'll never forget that, having to do that, for every time we